Hey y'all, I have such an awesome guest for you today. It's one of my really good friends. Her name is Allison LaCour. She's a New Orleans, Louisiana based nationally recognized makeup artist. She has expressed her talent in a variety of industries such as fashion editorials, local and national publications, a makeup artist for TV and film, politics, and celebrity glamour. Constantly evolving, Allison strives to stay on the cutting edge, delivering the latest trends and techniques in her artistry. Her mission of using beauty as an empowerment tool has spread across the country and even across waters internationally. She is absolutely fantastic. I know you're going to enjoy this conversation. We talked about being kids on Cane River. We talked about her growing up in New Orleans. The movie Cane River that you guys may have seen has kind of made this recent resurgence, and I'll have the link in the show notes for you where you can watch it. So it's actually available now. So she talks a lot about that and some of the people that are in the movie. We talk about her business and the things that she's doing and working on. We just had a really good conversation. It'll make you feel like you're back home. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. Hey guys, so thanks so much for listening. Today I have with me one of my very best friends, Allison LaCour. She is super talented in so many ways. She is my calm in the storm, and I think I'm her sometimes too. So I wanted y'all to have a chance to meet her and hear about the really cool things that she does, but her history and our history together, which started out with the party line on Cane River.
Right.
And like some people are going to be way too young and not even know what that is, but that was the thing because she was in New Orleans. So when you would come up to come see your grandmother and the family, then I always knew, and I don't even remember how I would know
Mm-hmm.
that you were there because we were little.
Yeah, we were very little. But yeah, probably. I mean, it didn't matter which grandmother, because I think my grandma Fatty had the party line longer than my grandma Myra did. But yeah, like it was, yeah.
Yeah, I don't
And then
know.
I used to love picking up the phone because I knew which ring was Miss Louise's ring, and so so when it was her ring, I would just pick up the phone and listen, and I would just be like, you know, I'd be listening, and and then I just put the phone down.
Would you hear what was going on? But
You
I don't
could. It
know. I
was
just
crazy.
remember, I guess like my dad would tell me that y'all were here, and I would go to my grandmother's house every Sunday with my dad,
Hmm.
and we'd find each other on the party line and trying to listen to everybody's business while they were talking on the phone.
Exactly.
Those were good
Yep.
days.
Those were really good days. Those were carefree days. Those were stress-free days.
Yes.
Ugh, if only.
If only. Like we appreciate that so much more now
Yeah,
because it was
120%. I thought it was crazy. I'm like, oh, I want to grow up. And I'm like, oh, what the, what a joke.
why.
Why?
I know
We've been
why.
punked. We've been punked.
I know completely because it was
Yeah,
so much simpler, and
it was way
our
simpler.
our grandmothers all knew each other forever, and just being on the river, everybody knew everybody and everybody's kids and all of that. And I was a wrong generation kid because my parents were older when they had me, so they were kind of friends with everybody, with your
Hmm.
grandparents and with your parents. So
Right.
it was just kind of, I was just in that kind of weird situation where I was in between generations. But I remember that so good, and just being down there on Sunday afternoons and people visiting. Remember when people used to go visit
Yes, people
and
laid
not
eyes on
call?
people. No, they never called. They would look and see if the car was there, or they would drive by and see if a car was, or whatever.
Or
And
toot
they
the horn?
or they would call, and if the phone was busy, they knew that they were there because they were on the phone probably, right?
Right.
So they would just show up. They just showed up. They didn't call before they came. Like they
Mm-mm.
just popped up, and then they came through the back door, you know,
Yeah.
or the side door. They never really rang the doorbell or
No, and there wasn't
came through the
really
front door, and nothing very formal at all. I will never forget this. Joe Jones was at the door. So it was a beautiful day in the summer. I can't tell you which summer. The doors were always open, the windows were open, you know, and my grandmother was walking around in a slip. Okay? And Joe Jones was at the front door, and I was yelling. I was telling my grandmother, I was like, Grandma, Judge, you know, Papa Joe's at the front door. And she walked to that front door with her slip on. And I was like, but Grandma, you ain't got no clothes on. And she was like, it ain't nothing here man ain't never seen before. And I was just like, what? I was like, what are you doing? You know, here I am, you know, all this. I'm just trying to remember things she taught me, you know, how to be proper and, you know, a proper lady, you know, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, no, all that shit went out the window. I guess once you reach a certain age, it's just like, there's no such thing. Whatever. It ain't, then that grown man didn't see nothing, you know, it wasn't nothing. And so, yeah, I was just like, okay, this is some crazy shit. Like,
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, people they just show up, you know.
And there wasn't a let me wait for somebody to answer the door. It was a knock and walk
No,
in.
a knock and walk in. They just
Yes.
knocked and walked on up in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And it was never a question. It was never like, oh, hey, it was, you know, like nothing, you know, it was like, hey, what do you want to eat? You know, like what,
Yeah,
you
or
know, fix
we
you a
had to go make
plate.
the coffee.
Yeah, make you some coffee, meat pie, whatever. And you like it was like clockwork. Mike Rock, Collins, we called him Bay, you know, like they would all come through the back door. And you know, my grandmother would always have coffee for them and meat pies. And they would literally sit or stand at the bar and have their coffee and their meat pie. And then they get right back to it because they would help her with the cattle. So they would, you know, whenever they came to check on cattle or whatever in the morning, like that's what they did, you know? And me being a city slicker, I was like, I need some air conditioning. So I would always sleep in the room in the living room, the den with the air conditioning unit, like on the sleeper sofa. I
Yeah.
never slept in the bedrooms because I was like, oh, I need AC, you know? So I would hear them because the door was right there. They would come through the door, never mind me sleeping. They walk right past me and I would wake up to them having coffee and meat pies. And I would just be like, okay, you know, it's just another day.
Yep, that's the way it was.
Just another day.
But everybody
Yep.
did visit. We would go every Sunday to my grandmother's, and her brothers were on either side of her. My Uncle Al was across the street next to Woods Hall. So,
Right.
you know, I would go to her house for dinner, and then I would go on my tour, and I'd go to my Mama Vera and Uncle Bill's house for dessert because she always made a cake.
Right.
And then I'd go to Auntie Coon's house on the other side because she would keep candy in her apron pockets because she knew I was coming. And then by that time, all the men would gather across the street at Big Al's, and he would be playing music outside on that porch.
Yep.
And that's why I tell everybody that's where I learned how to bullshit the most, from hanging around them. From
Exactly.
listening to them from childhood until being an adult. But I would go sit on the steps, and you know, they would help me fish, and we would hang out and do all kinds of stuff. And um that was the best times. It seems like those days were days long where it was just one Sunday afternoon, but those were the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And you were coming, so I didn't say, so you were raised in New Orleans.
Yes, raised in New Orleans. My dad and my mom, both being from the river, met in New Orleans. Well, they didn't meet. Well, I'm gonna say they met in New Orleans, but my grandmother, they both lived in New Orleans, and my grandmother had asked my dad if he could give, I think they were both on the river for some reason. And my grandmother had asked my dad if he could give her a ride back to New Orleans. And so that's how they met. And that was all she wrote. So but they grew up literally like, miles from each other, you know what I mean? From one end of the river to the other. So then, that's what it was. So I grew up in New Orleans. But every summer my parents would ship me off to the river.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got to be about 13, I was just like, I don't want to be here. I would have throw tantrums because I was just like, I'm 13. I don't want to, I want to be with my friends in New Orleans. I want to do stuff that other teenagers do. But no, I was on the river. And so they sent me to the river. And I think I would come to the river until I was like, I don't know, 16.
Yeah.
Before, was able to stay in, but, and I didn't understand it then. I appreciate it now wholeheartedly. But yeah, many summers, Christmases, things, all the holidays, hurricanes. Oh my God, whenever we had a hurricane,
Oh yeah,
that's where we escaped to, so
yeah.
But yeah, I literally, I was, it was either New Orleans or the river. So yep.
So explain who your mom and dad and then your grandparents.
My mom is
somebody's trying to figure out right now while they're listening to
right. Who am I? Right?
Yeah.
So my mother is Cynthia LaCour. Cynthia Friedman LaCour. She is the product of the love of Myra Amelia Shalette Friedman and Relance Friedman, who was Relance was the son of, I don't want to get this wrong. I want to say Murphy Friedman. Yes, Murphy Friedman. And Mama Ella, if I'm not mistaken, she was a Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandmother, her parents were P.B. Shalette and Suzette Rock Shalette. Suzette was married to a Rock before she married the Shalette. So there's different groups of kids with that, but my grandmother is the product of the Shalette crew. And that's on my mom's side. And then my dad is Julius LaCour Sr., and he is the product of the baby boy of Catherine Fatty. We called her Fatty. Catherine Fatty Sarp LaCour and Billy, Belazaire was his name, but Billy, they called him Billy LaCour. Yeah. So, and they lived right there on that curve as soon as you turn on to 484 from 494, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So they were right there on the curve and on the corner. And yeah. And then my grandmother was further in the middle, not too far from your grandmother. So a couple houses down.
Yeah. They went forward. That's how I would know when you were here.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was another girl that was close to my age. And
Mm-hmm.
your grandmother would tell my dad, because my dad was down there all the time, but
Mm-hmm.
that you were here. And your grandmother Miss Myra did such amazing things. And
She did amazing things. She was an educator. She was, she loved her community. She was avid churchgoer. She was founding member of the St. Augustine Historical Society. She was a civil rights activist, but most importantly, I think she used her influence as an educator and an administrator to facilitate those things. And
yeah,
she was a firm believer in education being the key to doing whatever it is that you want to do. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think I remember getting a speech, something about like that at some point. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but she did was one of the founding members of St. Augustine Historical Society, but she participated and was very active for years and years. And even after um, mom had really got the Creole Heritage Center up and running, she was still like very active and involved and just a source of incredible information from, decades before and, stories and just everything. And
Yeah.
she made such a huge impact on so many people.
Yeah. She was, we would go places, and it was so funny because they would have their set days to go to town, right?
Yeah.
And so they would go and they would do everything at one time in town. And we'd go to Brookshire's, they have doctor's appointments, they do everything. So we'd be in Brookshire's and people would always walk up to them. Like my grandmother lived with her sister, um, Marie Chalette Dupree. And they were both teachers. And they both taught at St. Matthew. My grandmother was principal at St. Matthew. She was very uh she was one of the people that actually helped build, got the funding, and they actually built the school because she was actually teaching at St. Matthew when they used to be in the church. And so she, we would always go places and people would always stop and speak to her. And I would just be like, why are y'all so famous? You know what I mean? Like I didn't get it, And I'm like,
Yeah.
why does everybody know you? And she would, say, oh, that was a student, or, vice versa. You know what I mean? Like people would always stop and talk to them because they literally taught everybody,
Yeah.
like everybody, right?
Yeah.
So if it wasn't my grandmother, it was my aunt. So they taught everybody. So I was just like, and I would have to sit and listen when people would come by and visit. I got to know them all, and um yeah, she was, I would always, as I got older and I moved back to the river or moved back to Louisiana when I left, like I would look at all of the things, and she had all these writings, and people like, a lot of college students from Northwestern would come and they would sit and interview her or talk to her, and then they would give her copies, of their papers and stuff like that. So I would just read, all of this, which was great.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, because there's a lot of oral stuff that was actually written down.
Yeah.
So I was like, it's pretty
Priceless.
cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because you had sent me a picture that I had never seen before of my grandmother and um her daughter, my Aunt Mary, and my Aunt Rita together that you had found in her pictures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tons of pictures. My mom had tons of what do you like those little what do you call them? Negative, like
Yeah.
film slides and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, just tons of things that she just kept. She kept everything, and just being able to go through all that stuff, you know, is really cool.
Well, it helps. And, when I had Andrew on, we talked about this, and it's like we talk about preserving the culture and which is preserving our stories. And
Hmm.
um I feel like it's my mission to get people to understand that that's what they did for us, not even
Right.
intentionally. They preserved our
Hmm.
story. We know, what their life was like, the things that they did. You heard people having conversations with her, you knew the impact that she had. And it's so important that we continue to do that because we don't want it to stop there. She did
Right.
tons of stuff. That's I was thinking about that before you said it. Like people would come and interview her all the time, and want to hear about how things were. And you have that, and a lot of us have that from our grandparents, but a lot of people don't. But I think it's really
Hmm.
important that we keep doing those same things, and share
Yeah.
those stories and preserve what those stories are, because when we lose somebody, then all of those thoughts and those memories and that history, all of that goes with them.
Yeah.
So if we're not asking, um, asking the questions, and it's so easy for us now because we all have, the ability to record and video everybody in the palm of our hand. It's really, there's no excuse not to preserve where you came from and your ancestry and who your first
Exactly.
was. Um,
Exactly.
so that's what I'm hoping that people will listen to these conversations and it'll inspire them and motivate them to do those same things, or to get their kids to do it, or to start having those conversations and asking questions about, well, who were my grandparents and what did they do and where did
Mm-hmm.
they live? And because it's like there's a bunch of us first cousins, and I have, it's kind of like we're in groups by ages. So the
Mm-hmm.
younger ones, they on my mom's side, they weren't even alive when my grandparents were. So our experiences are completely different, because just like, they would ship you to New Orleans, they would ship me to California, to Los Angeles. And,
Yeah.
so it's like I had a totally different experience with my grandparents and with that, knowing who they were, than what the younger ones did. So I kind of feel like it's our responsibility to say this is what it was like. And it was the same thing in LA, like exactly what you're talking about. I'd wake up in
Mm-hmm.
the morning and there was already a house full of people. Like
Right.
my mom, my moo and papu always had somebody over there. Somebody was coming to bring their car for my grandfather to fix, or they were just coming to have coffee or whatever it was. But people visited and they talked and they told stories. And that was one of the things that mom did, because she would get homesick. She would bring a cassette player, like old school, where you had to press the play and record at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And she would just sit it in the middle of the table, and she'd have tapes and tapes and tapes every time we went, of them just talking and telling stories and singing and joking and lying, and how we
Yeah.
do all of that. But it's like now those tapes are priceless, because it's,
Yeah.
you know you can hear
Well,
the.
it's very interesting you say that, because um the movie that has recently, the past few years, it's had a resurgence, Cane River the movie. And um my aunt Marie played grandma in the movie. And so when it was found and restored and brought to theaters, like I was immediately there. But like watching that and then hearing her voice again, and like her mannerisms, like it was just like, oh my God, like it was just what I remember. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because to have that, to have those recordings, or to have those videos of them at that time, is it's just priceless. It's like you know it's forever.
yeah,
And it's one thing that I appreciate with social media these days, or the ability to be able to record things and have such easy access to it, where it wasn't as easy. We get excited when we see like an old photo.
yeah,
We're like, oh shit, it's an old picture. But to be able to have that, um and just to be able to see and hear her voice, and just that was just like, oh gosh, you know what I mean? Because
yeah.
she was my aunt. She didn't have any kids. She was my great aunt, but it was like two peas in a pod. There was no Myra without Marie.
Right.
So they both were, catalysts in raising me and instilling certain things in me. And yeah, I just was like, oh gosh, I miss them so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I know.
yeah, it's those things that I'm just like, people are so excited, like, oh, this movie, and I'm just like, I just want to see my Aunt Marie. You know
I
what I mean? Like, I'm just like,
know.
I just want to see her hair. I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah, and a
and
lot of
she's
people were like,
and she got to play herself. She didn't
right.
like, that was exactly who she was. And I was just like, okay, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, I know there was so much excitement when that movie was kind of re-released and everything. And I think you can order it now, can't you?
I don't know if you can order it, but it was on TCM most recently, so I was able to record it. It's on my DVR. Someone said you could order it or something through Amazon, or you can kind of watch it on demand, or something like that. Like if you can find it, I forgot, but
Because there's other
you know,
people from down there that's in the movie.
oh, there's so many people. My dad, because my dad was watching it, and he called me and he just started naming people off. Like
Yeah.
just people, just he's like, yeah, that's so and so, and that's so and so, and that's and I was just like, okay, like, and he was getting choked up because just to see these people, you know, in a time when things were just so simple,
Yeah.
and I remember when I was a baby, right? But because, like I said, my grandmother kept everything, like in all of her stuff. Like there was the program from when they had the premiere, and it was like this
Oh wow.
big thing in New Orleans when they had the premiere. And so, and it was the Cane River, it was like everybody was so proud um to have this movie done there. And Carol Baltazar, she was in a relationship with the director, and she was the one who actually, was the historian and the person who gave all of the information in a sense about Cane River. And then it was financed by the Rhodes family, who is a prominent family in New Orleans. They have a few funeral homes and entrepreneurs, but it was financed by the Rhodes family. So through Carol, because that was the connection Carol had. And it was just like this big thing, like I remember seeing pictures, and I remember seeing, things that my grandmother kept in the album about this movie. And I'd always wondered about this movie,
Yeah.
so since a little girl. And then when it happened, I was like, wait a minute, you mean I get a chance to see it,
Yeah.
because even as a little girl, being 12, 13 years old and going through scrapbooks and seeing about this, I'm like, well, I want to see the movie. And we
When
just
was
didn't have that then. We didn't have that in the 90s where, you could just put it on VHS and
yeah.
get to see the movie. So, I mean, it's so much, like there's so much to be grateful for in a sense. And then, being someone who now works on movies, it was just like, it was just, it, to me, it was like a full circle thing for me
Yeah.
to be able to see and oh my God, like I would have loved to been a part of something like that, so
Happen again.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you remember around what year that came out or that was made?
um I was like just born. I think it was like 80, 81, something like that. Like I was like it was made in 80, 81, I think, or released in 81.
Yeah.
Like I was a baby, so I remember because I was born in 81, so I knew like I was like, there's no way. But I remember stories. Like I just remember, somebody babysitting me because my mom and my dad supposedly went to go see it. And but even though they say that they don't remember seeing it, so I was just like, but I thought the story was y'all had gotten me a babysitter. I
Let
was
me
like, I don't
change the
remember.
story up.
But yeah, I was like, wait a minute, but because I believe they had a screening in New Orleans, and they also had a screening in Shreveport, I believe. I don't think the screening was on Cane River or in Natchitoches, but which did I don't know. Maybe they just didn't have a place for it then. But yeah,
Hmm.
that's what it was. And it was like the big thing,
Yeah.
Everybody got dressed up, and then just people, everybody was so proud, and all the, and you see so many people in the movie that, like Edward Ward, you know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
it's all these people that in the church, and, you see all of these staples of Cane River that you're just like, it's home. And it was a beautiful depiction of Cane River. And I think it told the story, and I think it talked a little bit about some of our inner conflicts, and it didn't shy away from, the things that sometimes Cane River folk don't want to talk about. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
they don't want to mention it, but we know it's there. It's like that
Right.
elephant in the room. Like
Mm-hmm.
it didn't shy away from that. And I think that was the beautiful story of, you know, of way too many families and situations on Cane River. So I just thought it was beautifully done. It was authentic. It was about as authentic as it could be for a movie, you know.
Mm-hmm.
um and also even talking about kind of what I personally think um is an issue right now on Cane River: land, property, um you know, making sure we have and we hold on and we preserve what
Right.
is ours. um you know, they were talking about that then, you know, in the
Yeah.
in 80s, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, fast forward 30 years, it's like it's still an issue,
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? And so and that's the only way we're going to be able to, you know, move forward and help preserve this rich community and culture of a people, you know, is if we focus on that and hold on to what we have and what was passed down and what was worked so tirelessly from them to hold and keep together. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, that's I was thinking about when you first started talking about the movie, I said, well, that's a really good tie-in to what you do now. And then you said it because you do work in the film industry and you do a whole lot of other things. So talk a little bit about what you do and your projects that you've worked on.
Oh, okay. So I'm a makeup artist in film and TV. It's been a long road to get to this point, but I knew that that's what I wanted to do when I moved back to Louisiana, because it was really big when I moved back. And then it kind of died down a little bit because of tax breaks and tax credits, and then it picked back up. And so I have been working exclusively, minus a few weddings that you may see on the river, but I've been working exclusively doing,
Like mine.
yeah, like Tracy's, and everybody else's that you see. But and it's funny because I was just like, I don't want to do weddings. But then when people from the river hit me up and they're like, hey, and I'm like, I can't say no. You know what I mean?
Well,
Because it's an
no.
excuse for me to go home, and it's, you know, like I can't say no. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So for people listening, it's like I really am retiring from weddings, but you know, if we cousins and we family, you know what I'm saying? Like I'll make an exception. But and yeah, so I worked on crazy projects. Every time I redo my resume, I'm like, oh my gosh, like
I
I
know,
did
me
this.
too.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, me too.
So I've worked on Beyonce's Lemonade.
Whoop, whoop.
Most of your crazy movies that we've seen this year during quarantine, Photograph, which was the Issa Rae movie. I worked on 2 Issa Rae movies this year. So Lovebirds, which is it's so funny. It's on Netflix. If you haven't watched it, it's so cute and funny. But Issa Rae and Kamal, he's an Indian actor. They're like in this, it's cute. Anyway, I worked on that. I worked on TV show Purge. This is most recent stuff. Um, I've worked on a film. It's not out yet, but it's called Deep Water with Ben Affleck and Anna, his new girlfriend. But they're co-stars in this movie. And quarantine shut everything down, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do with myself, right? So I needed to be busy, and I recently birthed something that has been in the works for some time and has been in so many notebooks and things that I've been planning. So it's called Beauty and Ritual. Um, and it is basically like a beauty botanica. So I offer spiritual items, I offer beauty items, I offer really nice, beautiful ways to do ritual. I have some other things in the work as well. I want to offer candles. I want to offer homemade candles. as well as homemade self-care products such as, baths, beautiful bath teas and milk baths, and just all kinds of just good stuff for self-care, self-love, and just kind of turning inward. And, the quarantine and being home and trying to figure out what to do outside of work, that kind of birthed that, even though I think it's kind of been in the works for some time. It just gave me the time. So I'm kind of, in one sense, I'm kind of grateful for the pandemic in a way, because otherwise I don't know how I would have been able to find the time to actually get it off the ground, and make it work.
Yeah. And I think it's
Yeah.
not just the time, it's just it's the different headspace that I think a lot of us are
Yes.
in too.
Yeah. 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 It saved me, pandemic was, it was scary and it's rough, and it was just I was just in a place that I just was like, wait, I'm not working, so now I have all this time, and I'm just like, what to do? And then you're in this like you said, you're in this headspace, and it's like it gave me something to do, and it gave me an opportunity to make these things actually manifest off of a page and not just be in a notebook. And also a way for me to connect to other people, who could possibly be going through the same journey or trying to figure out, their own self-care journey or spiritual journey. It's also a way for me to also connect to my ancestors, and make it a thing, because it is a thing, and I as much as I was raised with them, and they were a huge part of my life. I mean, my grandmother didn't pass away. My grandma Myra didn't pass away until I was I was in my 20s, she lived to be 106. And I mean, she had a good 100 years of life where she was still vibrant. We still talked. We still, she was in her right mind. She didn't start losing things until, it was after 100. And that was a good 20 years of my life that, she was there. And it's like, okay, well, that's all I knew. And I'm like trying to find a space where I can still exist and know that she's still there and she's still here, and using all of those things that she taught me, the things that she instilled in me. One being, the passion and education, and, doing things that you are passionate about, and just kind of being the best at whatever you choose to do. And, that's kind of where I am now. We're back, from quarantine. So we're back at work, we're back shooting, we're back filming. And now I'm just trying to, find the balance in that, and keeping my baby afloat, and also, doing what I love to do, and balancing everything that 2020 has thrown at us. So, yeah, that's what I do. And I love, I like the process of telling stories and being a part of something that, I actually worked on, there's a Clementine Hunter documentary that's out. I worked on that, with another cousin from the river. She actually narrated it, Noelle, Bello. And she's actually a news, she's a journalist, a news broadcaster, and she's in LA now. Well, she's back in California now. But we actually got to work together, on this Clementine Hunter documentary that was filmed at the plantation. And it just so happened that we were both there for our Chillette reunion. So it was like, oh, we're working on this project together, and how it, manifested that way. So, it was kind of like, oh, I get to actually work on something in my home, about my home. You know what I mean? So it was just like, it was another, you know, serendipitous moment. Um, and you know, working with family, and it's a crazy industry because you work, and I mean, I working in this industry, you run into people all the time. Like I was working on another movie, Queen and Slim, and this last movie, Deepwater, and James Rock was the first AD. He's also from the river. His mom is a
Yeah.
LaCour. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it's like we're here, we're out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We're
And
doing the thing.
it's yeah, we're doing the things, and we still have that connection. You know, like he didn't have to ask me how to spell my name for the call sheet. You know, for
Right.
work, it was just like, you know, and I already knew how to pronounce his name. You know, and it's you know, it's one of those things. You know, like we still have that connection. And that's something that, you know, we take with us as we spread our wings and, you know, live our lives, you know, and take over the world because we out here. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? We out here. Yeah, we out here.
Well, I just want to take a moment and just acknowledge you for a second because you said it's been a long, hard road, and that's an understatement. You have worked
Total.
so hard, and you bring so much joy to the faces that you touch, and you make everybody feel so comfortable and beautiful and ready and empowered by the work that you do. And my forever favorite experience will be when you and I went to the store to go buy makeup, and that poor cashier girl who was all aflutter when we
Oh
got
my gosh.
to check out, and she said, the Allison, and she was just flushed and kind of sweaty and so excited. And it was just, I was so proud. And I know my chest was out big time, but it was just, it was like, yep, that's the Allison. So that was,
I was like, wait a minute, what is going on right now? I was like, I just want to buy my friend some blush. What we
I
doing?
know,
Like,
that's all it was. That's all it was. And she just
ah,
completely had a moment. So,
yeah, and that turned
yeah.
out to be really cool because we ended up connecting, and you know, I had her come and assist me on some things and gave her some opportunities, which is, you know, what it's all about. I
Yeah.
mean, I just, you know, I just want to be able to, you know, pass the baton and open up doors, you know, because it wasn't easy for me, you know what I mean? And I wish I had me a me, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like I
Right.
really wish I had me a me. And you know, I guess one of the biggest things I'm learning at this point in my career is that everything isn't, you know, like every job isn't for me. Every, you know, like it has to feel good. It has to um, resonate, you know, because you are a part of a bigger picture. You are a
Right.
part of someone else's idea or someone else's project or someone else's, you know, create. Like you got to work as a team, and it has to feel good. It's got to be, you know, it just has to be right, you know. So I
Right.
don't, you know, I'm at a point where it's got to feel good. I'm excited about my upcoming project that feels good, and you know, we'll see where it goes. And yeah, so
That's awesome.
that's what I that's what I'm doing.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you last question.
Whew.
I know this has been great though. Yeah, it's been great. Okay,
It has.
so what's your definition of Creole?
Oh, I'm gonna cry. Family, family, culture, um, history, um, ancestors. We are the big pot of gumbo.
Yeah.
We bring, as a Creole, and people always say to me, you know, because I'm not one of those people that proclaim it, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not like Creole queen and Creole this, and I don't have the flag and I don't have the shirts. I have your shirt, but I don't have like all like I don't have like all of these things where I'm like, I'm Creole, I'm Creole, I'm Creole. You know, like I don't, you know, like, because I just feel like I am. Like it's everything that I do. It's everything that, you know, from my name to me middle, you know, my child's middle name, you know, I was like, she has to be Marie. You know what I mean? Her middle name has to be Marie. You know what I mean? Like to carrying on the traditions that were set forth. Like I had my daughter in Florida. You know, she was born in Florida. If you ask her, she's like a Florida baby, right?
Yeah.
But I made sure that she was, you know, we came to New Orleans or Cane River every chance. She was baptized at St. Augustine. She was, you know, like there were certain things that I would not budge on.
Right.
And that was imperative to me because, you know, there's not too many places or people that you can talk to and say, you know, all of my family is in this cemetery.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Or all of, you know, everybody I know, you know, was either married in this church or not. You know, if they couldn't, then they were, you know, like what they were on the river, or they like just how we do things, you know, the traditions of holidays and food and meat pies and gumbo and pecan candy and pecan trees and picking pecans and, you know, hearing the pecans crack under your car as you're driving down the driveway and you're like, you know what, I'm about to go pick me up some and just crack them and eat them. And just little stuff, things that, you know, playing in freaking cotton bins. You know, like people are like, oh, cotton, you know, that's like such a trigger for, I'm like, we used to take off our shoes and climb in those cotton bins and, you know, get fussed at because we had sticks all in our socks. And we were playing in the cotton bins after they, you know, like we would go and it was just things we did and, you know, experiences we had. And there's certain things that, you know, I'm just Creole. Like that's who I am. And you know, that's my culture, it's my history. And I mean, on both sides, like it was like no question, you know?
Right.
So yeah, that's to me, that's what it's family, it's connection, it's all of the things that bind us, it's quilts, it's, you know, it's like a quilt, you know, putting together those little pieces of fabric that make us who we are.
Right.
And you know, it doesn't look like anything, it doesn't, you know, it just is. You either are or you aren't. And that's it. I mean,
I think that's perfect.
yeah.
So everybody's going to want to be your friend. So how can people follow you or read more about you, find a list of your anything like that?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I'm really simple. It's Allison LaCour, ALL. I have two L's. ISON LACOUR. I'm on Facebook. I just kind of am not too active as much on Facebook. But if you want to follow, I mean, Instagram is, you know, my works. And yeah, like that's, and Beauty and Ritual also, if you want to kind of see my baby, it's at Beauty and Ritual, and that's Beauty, BEAUTY, the letter N, and Ritual, RITUAL. If you're interested in that, you know, I got some really cute things, and you know, the motto is to ritual beautifully. So I don't, you know, I'm trying to kind of marry my aesthetic, my love for beautiful things and aesthetics, and in self-care and ritual, just kind of marrying the two.
Yeah, I love it.
So yeah. So yeah,
Okay.
that's yeah, that's
Well,
that.
I'll make sure if y'all are listening and you're trying to like drive and search her on Instagram, stop. I will put all of the links and contact information in the show notes so that you guys can go and follow her both herself and Beauty and Ritual. There are some really cool things in there, very unique, very home, very
Handmade, like all
yeah.
my sage bundles are handmade. I handmade my sage bundles. I burn all of the inscriptions in my Palo Santo bundles, because intentions are real. And I I put the feeling of good, we want that good juju. And yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I love you a
This
lot.
wasn't so bad. I was
I
like, oh, I was like, talk. You want me to talk, Tracy? I was like,
like, what are we gonna talk about? Like,
I was like, oh. I was like, what they want to hear what we have to say?
yeah.
No, but thank you. Thank you for making, thank you for asking me to do this. And you know, this was awesome.
Yeah, it was. This is really, really good. I'm happy.
Yeah.
I miss you a lot. You're in New
I miss
Orleans.
you too. I hate this pandemic.
I know. I hate it, but when it
Oh,
is safe, you will be
I want a
Tracy Hug.
hug. I want a
So
Tracy
Tracy
hug.
Hug. Big
Yes,
time.
I am so ready for this pandemic to be over so I can give me some Tracy hugs, you know.
I have them all saved up.
Oh,
Promise. I have a wealth
oh,
of them because I haven't been able to
yes,
give them. So just know they're going to be extra, so extra.
yes, yes, yes,
Yes.
yes, yes,
Thank you.
yes. Love you so much.
I love you too.
All right, boo.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. So I really hope that you enjoyed this episode. What we talked about was exactly why I wanted to start this podcast. I wanted everybody that listened to this to feel a sense of home, of belonging, of family, of culture, of history, ancestry. We got into all of those things in this conversation in such a short amount of time. And it was just everything that I hoped to put across to everybody that I'm trying to reach. I mean, this podcast is for you. This is for you to learn. This is for you to feel engaged, all of those great things. So thank you so much for listening. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you want to find out more about Allison, I'll make sure to include how to contact her in the show notes, along with that link to the Cane River movie. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Hi, friends, and don't forget to shop the Gumbo Life store at www.gumbolife.com. Post your pictures on social media and your Gumbo Life gear, hashtag it Creole Lifestyle. Music by Cody Cassard. Editing and production by Tracy Ante.